Hey guys, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm Toy Guru Neitlich, longtime toy maker and toy collector. And today I want to talk about collecting and the ethics of collecting. And I know you might be saying, like, well, what are you talking about, ethics of collecting? We have the right to buy whatever we want. Well, what I mean is, when you no longer have something
is no longer in mint condition.
For example, when you customize a figure on your own, like I repainted my Marvel Legends Adam Warlock figure to actually have gold skin, because he does not have tan skin. Thank you very much, Hasbro. Or I took a stab at making some Savage Dragon action figures, and, I'm not exactly the world's greatest customizer. So my Hulk that became Brainiac and my Captain America that became Powerhouse are, okay. I wish I had the ability to custom, because there's a lot of characters that I've always wanted, like Spot here, which I cannot bring myself to buy this animated version. Luckily, Juan Soto, who's a subscriber and a very talented toy customizer, made a Spot figure for me, and I'm still very grateful for that because it completes my Spider-Man collection. All right, so what in the world are we talking about with ethics then? And are we ethically required as collectors to keep our products in mint condition? Now, there's a few things we do on the aftermarket. Things like switcheroonies, which I'm a big, big fan of that. I mean, not just the show Liv and Maddie, because my daughter was into that. Or when you glue things. What about when you bring Glue Man in? Or when you sell something on eBay, does that make you a scalper? So I want to talk about the faux pas that are part of the adult collecting hobby. As an example, last year for my birthday, my wife was nice enough to get me this awesome Marvel Legends Apocalypse figure I already had. The Build-A-Figure Apocalypse from Toy Biz, so he wasn't on my list. So it was cool to get a figure that I wasn't going to buy myself. This was sort of an extra. That's what presents should be. All right. Now, the thing is, though, I found that the wires are constantly popping out of the darn holes on his belt and arms. So I superglued them. I superglue a lot of things. I superglue capes, I superglue hats. Occasionally I'll even superglue a weapon in place. Now the question is this ethical when it comes to being a collector? Now that I've glued Apocalypse's tubes in place, is he no longer in mint condition? And do I no longer feel like I have a mint Apocalypse? Or do I have a custom Apocalypse for me? The problem with gluing things is you sometimes limit the ability to display a figure. For example, if I glued both of those tubes to both arms, I would no longer be able to swap out the gun arm on Apocalypse here. So I only glued them into the back portion. Other times things like, well, on Cyclops here, those darn, leg band things. So on one of my Cyclops, I glued them in place so that they don't move. But on the other one, they're not glued in place, and they jiggle like crazy, and that drives me nuts. So, much like his brother Havoc, same thing. I haven't glued Havocs on yet, but you can see they don't stay in place. So the question is, if you glue a figure's armor in place, as the buyer, obviously we have the right to do this, but as a collector, are our figures now personal customs, or are they still sellable and the original figure just maybe not in mint condition? So as an example, I glued the fishbowl and cape onto my Mysterio. So when I bought the new one here, the comic modern accurate colors, my old Mysterio, which was actually the more valuable one, that's the one I glued the cape down, can I no longer sell this? And the reason I have it on my Voltron there, not in my Spider-Man collection, is because I don't know if I could sell him on eBay, because I've glued him in place. And so I guess I'd have to say, this is a figure that's been glued. Another example is in my X-Men collection, I have a Warpath figure. I have this one, right, that we bought when the Deadpool wave from a couple years ago, right? I think it was the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure that I did not build. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. The point being is this was really the Warpath I wanted. I wanted a Warpath that had the comic-accurate belt, his knives, and actually a little bit more comic-accurate hair with the feather coming up. Now, as far as Warcraft's different versions, he's had belts, he's had no belts, he's had weird sleeveless version that we got after Rob Liefeld left, more's the pity. I wanted kind of the Rob Liefeld quintessential version from X-Force #1, which meant having his brother's belt, which he wore as an homage to his younger brother. So, how do you make this happen? Well, like I said, you do a switcheroony, and you buy both figures, and you pop them in a boiling pot of hot water, and your wife thinks you're making weird oatmeal, but you're not. And after the heat of the water is able to loosen the plastic, the belts tend to slip right off. I mean, it's not exactly easy, and you have to be careful. Not to break it, but yes, you can swap most Marvel Legends or G.I. Joe or Black Series belts simply by boiling them and swapping different parts. So now I have my Warpath. Another version of the switcheroonie technique is I created my own Mary Jane using the body of Moira McTaggart. So we had a couple Mary Janes. We had one that came with Gwen Stacy. We got a head, but if you put that on a Gwen Stacy body, Peter might be happy, but you don't get Mary Jane the way she should look. There's also switcheroony opportunities when you get new heads. And if you have an existing figure or you have duplicates of an older figure, it's kind of sometimes fun to take a new head and put that on an older figure. I was really big in doing this on the Masters of the Universe Classics line, offering heads that we couldn't offer previously for tooling or financial reasons. So it's a cool payoff for long-term fans. One of the particularly cool things about Marvel Legends is there's a universal suit body. So you can take different heads and pop them on the suit body and kind of actually make new characters. Joe Shalom, who's a subscriber and a really awesome guy, actually sent me a loose chameleon head because he had an extra one, and he knew I didn't have a chameleon in my collection. So I went and just bought a generic suit body. I think I got Everett from the Black Panther 2 line because it was on sale for like $12. Popped off his head, popped on Chameleon's head. Now, what about other heads? Like you have Green Goblin, who came with a Norman Osborn second head, and of course that head works perfectly fine on a Green Goblin body, but Norman Osborn is a businessman, and so same thing. You could pop off the Chameleon head or any of your S.H.I.E.L.D. agents or all sorts of different suit body, and bam. Now, what about characters that get better heads? Rogue is a good example. We had a re-release of her, and the new head was superior to the old one. It looked more accurate. So I swapped them because I wanted the more goldish body as opposed to that yellow body, even though it had the removable glove. So it's kind of like creating your own version of a character by mixing and matching with later released parts. It's also why I'm always pushing for universal peg heads. This happened recently with Gambit. We got a new release of Gambit, and the head sculpt, what's called a portrait, is so much better than the previous two. So, bam, pop it off, pop the Gambit head onto a existing Gambit body. Luckily, the pegs are, in this case, convertible or, workable. They're not always like that with Marvel Legends, where one head can work on a different character's body, but in this case, yay. So I can create the Gambit I quote-unquote always wanted with the best possible head sculpt of those offered. But hey, it's not just Gambit's head that I wanted to borrow from the new sort of X-Men Gold pack, but I also wanted his belt. So same thing like with the Warpath Thunderbird figures, boil them on up, belt slips off. So I can now have exactly the Gambit, exactly the Rogue I want, using parts I bought from different figures. So you can see I put on Gambit's belt onto Forge to give him a circle belt, as well as I also gave him Gambit's little satchel thing, because sometimes Forge has a satchel. So I stole head, stole a belt. Well, not stole, I bought the figure. So you can see Forge, the original version with the square belt, and the middle one with the circle belt there. So that circle belt was on Gambit on the left, so I just swapped them by boiling them in water. Oh, and you can see Forge's little fringes on his leg fell down because they're not glued. So there you go. So the real question then is, now that I've modified my Gambit figure by swapping the head and the belt and the satchel, can I sell that figure on eBay now that I've sort of mined it for all the parts that I want? Well, I suppose the answer is yes, as long as I'm clear of what I'm selling from description and image. But it brings up the whole no longer in mint condition and whether or not when we modify figures after we buy them, well, are they still part of our collection or are they statues that we choose to buy? Are they still action figures when we've modified them? What do you think? Do you think it's we have the right ethically to sell toys that we buy? Is it different from scalping? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to start a conversation about this and see where it'll go. Thanks for watching, thanks for sharing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.